Yo, 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 in this short little video, I'm going to talk about fretting hand tension, pain, tiredness. If you've ever been having any problems with your fretting hand, then this video is for you. Now, these two things are in no particular order, but I think the role of your thumb can lead to you pressing too hard on the frets. So I'll talk about that first. Now, this isn't a topic that I've heard a lot of guitarists or guitar tutors talking about online. Not saying that they haven't, it's just that I've not encountered people talking about it regularly. And that's the fact that your thumb should have a passive rather than an active role on the back of the guitar neck. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you have an active thumb, your thumb is actively pressing into the back of the neck as you play. If you like what you see here, please don't forget to subscribe to the 60 Seconds of Shred YouTube channel. Leave me a comment, like the video, it'll all help with the algorithm. Now, if you think about it, if you're doing that, if you imagine the guitar neck's in between my fingers here, if your thumb is pressing into the back of the neck and your fingers are going forward into the frets, then you've kind of got this claw effect like this. Now, you'll notice that in this part of my hand, the skin's starting to go white in the same way that it would if you made a fist. Now, when we make a fist like this, we make the muscles in our hand more tense. We cut off the flow of blood to the skin becomes more taut. And therefore, the skin starts to lose its normal colour and starts to go white because of the tension that the fist is under. Now, the same kind of thing's happening here when we make this action. You're starting to introduce tension to your palm, and over time that tension starts to become tiredness, which then becomes pain, and that pain is then felt in your wrist and then your forearm and eventually your entire arm. Really, your thumb should have a passive role. It should literally just be touching the back of the neck. Here's a little exercise to help highlight what I mean. So what I want you to do is play the chord of G. Then I want you to play the chord of G again, but take your thumb entirely off the back of the neck. You can still play it, right? So what this hopefully highlights is that your thumb doesn't need to be pressing into the back of the neck as you play in order for you to be able to play things. Now, I'm not suggesting that you start playing with your thumb off the back of the neck, because that would lead to pretty poor fretting hand technique, and also it's a lot harder to put enough pressure on the notes as you play. What I am saying though is that if you do push your thumb into the back of the neck as you play, then you need to reduce that pressure in order to reduce the tension. In a lot of ways, the active versus passive thumb is all in your mind. Like a lot of things to do with guitar technique, this is all in your head. As soon as you start being aware of that pressure that your thumb's putting on the back of the neck, you need to tell yourself to stop, to release that pressure slightly. I think this is more evident when you're playing something that requires a position shift from one area of the guitar neck to another. And I think this is because you're under a bit of time pressure where you need to play the next thing in the right place. And as a result of having to move, you're more likely to kind of like jump across the guitar and press down. This wouldn't be quite so evident if you were playing, I don't know, a chord progression in one position, because you're not having to move across the neck. Anyway, as I'm playing this particular thing, occasionally I'll just lift my thumb off the back of the neck ever so slightly, just to remind my hand how much I don't need to press my thumb into the back of the neck. Now, you can't even really see this happening because my thumb is pretty much touching the neck. It's just coming off slightly occasionally just to remind myself what it's supposed to feel like. I'm not for a second, however, suggesting that you take your thumb off the back of the neck like this as you play. If you do just release the pressure on your thumb occasionally as you play, as you start to feel that tension, eventually your thumb will learn that it doesn't need to do anything on the back of the neck. It has a passive role. My second point, and I'll go through this really quickly because I've talked about it in a previous video, pressing too hard with your fretting hand fingers. Now, I think this is something that a lot of guitarists, including myself, are guilty of. And it's best highlighted by this really, really simple exercise that I actually learned from a video by the amazing Rick Graham. And it goes like this. If you play fret 5 on the low E, if you press as hard as you possibly can on that note and then play, you'll get a note sound. It sounds the way that it's supposed to sound. But now what I'd like you to do is do that again, but play the string over and over and over and release the pressure on the string until it sounds muted. Okay, now go the other way. So start with it being muted and press your finger into the string until it sounds right. And you'll be amazed about how much pressure you don't need to put on the string in order for the note to sound the way that it's supposed to. Now the point is that if you're pressing any harder than the minimum, you're kind of wasting your time because the note's not going to sound any different. You might get a tiny bit more sustain if you press really hard, but the trade-off for that is a lot more tension in your fingers. That tension will lead to fretting hand pain and then fretting arm pain, wrist pain, all those things that we highlighted earlier in this video. So you need to retrain your fingers to not press as hard. And that combined with a passive thumb will give you a much more smooth and fluid fretting hand technique. I remember watching a video a few years ago about the guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen, and the tutor in the video described him as having a very light touch with his fretting and picking hands. I kind of didn't really understand what he meant up until the past few months. If you put the things that we've learnt about in today's video into practice, this will lead to a lighter touch with your fretting hand. If you play relaxed, you'll sound relaxed. And if you sound relaxed, you'll become a more professional guitarist. Right, that's it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.